A little bit of background. And we'll go into the next one. Okay. Again, just a reminder of the mission and looking to have a healthy lifestyle for our veterans and their family members, community outreach and advocacy for Loudoun County veterans issues. And we've been doing that for a while now, and it's a real challenge, to say the least. Okay, before you flip to the next one, Christy, I'll just make a couple points. So we went through the purpose, and as I said, it's a little hard to do in a virtual world, but we've been working on it. And I really appreciate the work that's been done by so many of these organizations, so many of you all here tonight and your organizations, working under severe circumstances. And we've got Tom out there who's coordinated it all. Unfortunately, is not able to communicate with us directly. So we know he's been busy. We know we've gotten more than a few emails from him on a daily basis on some of the work he's done with veterans in the county that need help. And we've had some good responses from many members. So again, that's worked well. So unfortunately, we're not going to get any more from him, I don't think. I don't know if anybody else wants to make any comments about the county or things they've been doing with the county that they want to bring up at this time that we should share together with Tom Grant.
Tom mentioned that he just typed in the chat. There's has not been any large change in veteran demand during the last 2 months, and most fall within the one of three categories: the employment, the benefits, and veterans in need.
Okay. Well, that's going to, okay, then we'll leave it at that for now and catch up with him later. The next item up, by the way, since this is an annual meeting for us, we have an executive board. It's got a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer, and a secretary. And there's an option for that board that's been elected a couple of years ago to continue to serve for an additional year if necessary. And that's where we are right now. We've got myself as the chair. Could we go to the next slide? Oh, that didn't work. Okay. I thought I had the list of members, but back up again. Oh.
It's the next couple of slides.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
Let me know you're there.
There we are. Okay. So the current executive committee, which has been meeting, is myself as chair, Ken James is the vice chair, Richard Ryan is the treasurer. The secretary has been Christy Canati, but she has got a lot of responsibilities she's picked up the last couple of months and is going to be with us, but not necessarily as a secretary. Michael, who's still on the line, I believe, had expressed interest in working with us as part of the executive committee. And we identified him as potentially filling the role as secretary. Michael, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You are audio only, right?
Correct.
So we don't get to have a chance to take a look at you or show a hand.
I promise by the next meeting I'll have my webcam up in place.
Did you want to say anything to the group that's here right now about yourself at all, your background? I know your veterans background or what you're doing right now.
Sure, I'll give you a quick introduction. I am an Army veteran. I served in the 1st Cavalry Division in Fort Hood and with the 18th Airborne Corps out of Fort Bragg. I've been out since 2007, but I did a stint with DOD. I was part of Task Force Odin, their counter IED team. Spent several deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm originally from a small town in northwest Pennsylvania, pretty close to Lake Erie. But my wife and I and our kids have been in Aldi for a little over 4 years now. And I'm a member of American Legion Post 295 in Middleburg.
Mm-hmm. Well, from my point of view, the most important thing is you're airborne, so that's okay.
Fort Bragg was definitely my favorite post out of all my duty stations, for sure.
Okay, so what we wanted to do tonight was to verify that we could keep the executive committee together for another year. We had, as I said, we had indications from 3 of our members that they're willing to serve for an additional year, and Michael that he was willing to work with us as well. So we have, what we wanted to do is to try to look at whether or not we had a quorum with our members and could elect these people to serve for an additional year. So I have to go back to, oh, there's the voting roster. So some people are out ice skating and others are here. Chrissy, do you know where we stand right now in terms of a quorum?
I think we're actually good. I saw Scott Morse joined. I saw Justine joined. So I think we definitely have a quorum. So we are good.
I make a motion that the slate of proposed officers be approved.
Oh, that's nice. Good work.
Stephanie Burns, second. Second.
Did we get a second?
Yeah, Stephanie.
Oh, there's Scott.
Hey, this is Scott Morse. I second.
Yeah, Stephanie seconded as well.
Okay. Any other discussion? Keep it simple. And we could go for a verbal aye. Those that are voting members. So we've got Scott, we've got.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank
Phil
you.
Russell, DFW.
Okay. Are there any oppositions or? Oh. Okay, so we've elected.
Legal
the
Services
next
in Northern
council-
Virginia.
Oh, okay. It's interesting to try to do this virtually, let's say. So I believe we've extended the executive committee into 2021. Thank you very much for all of those that have volunteered and come forward to help us with this. Okay. In that case, Christy says thanks. On to the next view graph slide. And here we are with the Communications Committee.
Yeah, now let me start off, Jim, with thanks for the team that's been working on the Communications Committee. I'm Ken James, and I've been kind of working with this team quite a bit over the last 2 years, and we've done quite a bit of work to try to get our brand, if you will, out across Loudoun County, and we still got a long way to go to really make this CVEB something that veterans will turn to in times of need and allow us to help direct them to the right resources, such as Tom Grant and the great programs that Tom has access to. What I want to do this year is kind of step aside and go into more of a help mode, if you will. And Rob Jones has volunteered to step into this committee and kind of take the lead for it and work with Richard and myself, Don, Peter, and Michelle. And I think that's important. Rob comes to the table with a lot of knowledge about what goes on within Loudoun County and has a lot of contacts. So without taking too much away from Rob, why don't you tell a little bit everyone about yourself and kind of let them know who you are, if you will. And we can go to the next slide, Kristen, please.
I'll be brief. I grew up here. I grew up in Lovettsville. I was in the Marine Corps from 2006, 2011. Wounded in Afghanistan in 2010. Became a double above knee amputee as a result of an IED blast. And then I spent the next about 10 years getting into sports, went to the Paralympics, and then kind of turned my sporting endeavors towards giving back to the veteran community and raising money for veteran charities. And so the way that I did that was by riding my bike across the country in 2013 and running 31 marathons in 31 consecutive days in 2017. And yeah, like you heard, you know, I've developed some relationships during that period that I hope I'm going to be able to leverage in order to help get the word out about the veterans engagement. So really looking forward to working on this with everybody. Appreciate the opportunity. And if anybody wants to get in contact with me directly, has any ideas moving forward on how to increase our footprint please send an email to. Thanks a lot. And,
Thanks, Rob. And welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. Christy, could you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so Rob's been introduced. And again, Rob, we appreciate what you bring, both the depth and breadth of experience that you have and what you'll bring to the table. I know all of us will look forward to working with you. Is Don Portman on tonight on the line, Christy?
I'm not seeing him, no.
Okay, I know he was out of town. So what Don was going to update on was the web page and the Facebook as well. And I just want to say that Don's been doing one whale of a job of keeping it up to date and taking items that primarily Tom has been releasing and posting those on our webpage. One of the things I will ask you, go ahead, please. Sorry. Did somebody say something, please? Okay. One of the things I will ask
You lost your voice.
Can you hear me now? Can
Yes,
you hear me, Jim?
I hear you now.
Okay, great. Okay. One of the things that we have asked at each of these meetings, and I'm going to ask it again here, and we'll also be looking at doing maybe a letter out to each of the organizations, but we really need each of the VSOs in Loudoun County to keep the CVEB informed on what they're doing, the programs. And I realize that the COVID has stopped a lot of the things that we normally do. And so that's certainly slowed down our efforts to get engaged with the community. But as we start to see the conditions relax a little bit, we're able to get out more into the community and get involved with the programs that we had ongoing before. We need the VSOs to keep us as the one of their point folks for advertising their programs. And I can't emphasize that enough. If we're helping you get the word out, you're actually in turn helping us to spread the word about the CVEB across this county. So we're not here to certainly step in front of you at all, but what we are here to do is to help you get the word out on what you're doing. So help us help you, and in turn, it will help all of us immensely. So
Dan?
next slide. Go ahead, please.
Richard here. I got a question on that. I like the thread that you were weaving, and I was just thinking, I haven't been on the LCC web page for a while.
Mhm.
Is there a calendar of events where you would see that American Legion Post 295 is doing a 5K run on this date, and somebody else is doing something else on this date?
There's not necessarily, there is a calendar, but I'm not sure exactly that it's the best in the world, if you will, for advertising those kinds of events. And, whether we have one up front on the very front of the page, if you will, so that you click on it and you see everything that's going on in October. That's some of the things that we and the communications committee, or Rob has mentioned he wants to take on. And so that'd be a great thing to put on that page. You can see some of the items that we have on there now, but is there a calendar that shows everything that's going on for October and for all the different organizations? The answer is no. So
your request is primarily around events as opposed to we adopt 2 wounded warrior families every year at the holidays and do Christmas shopping for them. So it's not necessarily that kind of stuff, or the veterans supportive housing stuff that we do at the holidays. You're not necessarily after that kind of stuff. You're after events like 5K runs or job fairs or that kind of thing.
Well, Chuck, that's a great point. And what we would be interested in doing is helping, if you have things such as what you're talking about, is helping families, and we can actually post something on this page that would help get the word out to the community that you're doing this, and all the help that they can help with funds or with supplies or whatever the case may be. We'll certainly be more than willing to put that up there as well. It's an event that you're hosting, and that's something that we could advertise for you, is my point. Okay. The idea is to get the word out across the county that there's a lot going on for our veterans and that we want to work together as a team. So I think it could be a 5K event. It could be, 295 is hosting, an event for, a wounded warrior family over the Christmas holidays, and they're, going to accept donations or food gifts up to a certain point. So
Okay.
that can be done.
And exactly what's the process, or where do we send this? And is there a format or a restriction in terms of how wordy it is?
I think the main thing is what we'll do is I would suggest that you send it to the webpage, to the email address, and then allow us to format it if we could, what we would want. And we can certainly send out more information on this on a format, put a format sheet up on our page here, but it would be the event, the date. There's the email. And then what we can do is we'll get you, you could actually use this format here to say, the message is, this is what we're doing on this date, but let's get a little bit more formal. But we need to know what the event is, what's required or what's needed, and the deadline, of course. And then who is the point of contact if they have questions. Does that help, Chuck?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Rob, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, please?
No, I think you said it all, sir. I would just say, yeah, we don't want everything that has, that anybody's doing with respect to helping veterans.
Yeah.
We put it on there, so and make sure people know about it. So yeah, you said it all.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? There's two events that we have looked at for 2021. And of course, anything and everything that we're going to do next year is dependent upon what happens with the coronavirus and the vaccine and different restrictions that may or may not be in place at the time. We're hopeful that when we get to the first of the year, there will be a vaccine that will be coming out. And once that's in this area and given to folks, then we'll start seeing a relaxation of the restrictions. That being the case, we need to start planning now if we're interested in doing a virtual job fair. And two annual events that we would like to have the group consider would be a job fair each year, and also look at the Veterans Experience Action Center that we started to put into place for 2020. And of course, we all know that COVID had put us in a position where we had to cancel that, and rightfully so. But these two events were actually things that have a tremendous impact on our veterans. One is, of course, getting them a job, and two is helping them to get their benefits. So as the Community Veterans Engagement Board, we feel like these are two major events that we ought to be involved with, because all of the various VSOs in the area are here to work together with us as a team for the benefit of all. So I wanted to put this up in front of everybody. The executive committee talked about this as something that we would like to take on in 2021, and we'd like to open it up to the group for any discussion at this point. But again, the virtual job fair in April, and then follow that up in October with the Veterans Experience Action Center. And, on this VAC, I will say this, and even the virtual job fair, both of those, if need be, we could do those on, there is a virtual capability for the VAC as well. So we understand that's been done. We have not had a chance to explore that with the VA, but that's an option that we may be able to explore as well. So I'll open it up to the floor for any comments or suggestions from the group. So does anybody have anything, please?
And I
Ken,
was just, okay, go ahead.
Peter Scott here. As a part of the job fair, we ought to get a talk from Tom Grant about the services that his office can provide, such as resume writing and how to do an interview, all that sort of thing. The more opportunity we have to get that capability broadcast, I think the better off we'll be.
Okay. I agree with you totally, Peter. And that's one of the, working with Tom in the various Loudoun County, resource center, the workforce resource center, and some of the other folks is important to find out what's already been done. And as we've experienced from, we have heard from other communities who do the job fairs, they already have a wide net, if you will, that allows them to reach out and grab a variety of different services, from resume writing to how you dress for success, how you present, how you conduct that interview so that you go in there and you're able to answer the right questions. You're going in prepared. So doing some practice interviews and things like that is important. And so we would be reaching out to a lot of different folks around the county. So what is Corporate Gray? And Christy, what was the other one you mentioned one time before? There were two different organizations that we've already got, we've already been told about. Corporate Gray was one of them. What was the other one?
Gray, there's also just like the Loudoun Workforce Resource Center was what we were talking about, and connecting with them because they've been doing some virtual job fairs as well.
Right.
There's also like Virginia Employment Commission, which we talked to a little bit last time, and there's a few other organizations that do virtual job fairs that we could partner with.
Right. So that's our focus, and we'd like to start working on that now because it's gonna take some work. Similar to the VAC, it's gonna take some work to put this together. It's not just gonna happen overnight. So there's a lot of effort that's gonna have to go into this. So.
Hey Harold, this is Eric Thomas, CJ3 Foundation. I'm also a senior with the federal government. I guess my question is, we're always looking for other avenues to advertise and put our human resources and our recruitment folks out to. Given our location, are we going to include federal entities there as well?
Yes, we would. That would be the goal, is to bring as many employers to the table as possible. I work for Booz Allen. Would we bring them in? Would we bring CACI in? How about the SAIC? Get as many employers as possible to come to the table to make it a rich experience for all of our veterans. Okay. Any other questions, please? All right, look for more information coming out. We'll be sending out some information to everybody that's on this call tonight, as well as the other organizations that couldn't be represented for a variety of reasons. But we'll be sending out some information to seek and seek some input from everybody. So we appreciate it very much. Eric, thanks again for the comment and the input. We appreciate that. And Peter as well. Thank you very much. So, all right.
Thanks, Ken. And just, I think a little bit of a reflection of, the goal that we were at with the VAC last year. I have a feeling we'll probably want to start that committee again in the coming months so that we can get kind of geared up and figure out the game plan for that. So lots to do, but that'll be great.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Kristen. That's all I have. Jim, any other questions, please? If not, I'll turn it back over to you.
Ken, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Okay. The reason I'm saying that is that for some reason or other, I'm having intermittent voice connectivity at this end. So I'm only getting part of it. I was going to tell you that in case something happens if I disappear.
Okay.
To keep it moving forward.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, that's all I have, Jim. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And we do have a couple of situations that, again, virtual. We had a conversation before we started with your presentation about the fact that this is going to be a virtual world a lot longer than we think it will be. And we're thinking, well, we'll be okay come April or whatever. But it looks like we're going to continue into a virtual mode for quite a part of 2021 as well, unfortunately. Anyhow, now we're at the point of guest speakers. So we had Kit, I think you were identified as,
yes.
I was talking to you earlier this evening.
Yes.
You're there.
Okay. Christie, the
Do you want
PowerPoint?
to talk about the project?
Yep, do you want me to show it on my end?
Yes, please.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. Oh, I think who's sharing? Oh, I think Sam's sharing his screen. Let me take over. You guys see my screen now? Okay, perfect. All right, Kit, I'm ready whenever you are.
Yeah, I don't see my PowerPoint though, unfortunately.
Oh,
Hey, Sam Myers,
Yes.
can you not share your screen? Because soon I'm going to get into your inbox and start looking at some of your emails. And every time that's happened to me online, it's been very embarrassing.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to do?
let me see if I
Christy,
can.
what would he do? Unshare?
Let me see if I can unshare. Hang
Where
on.
it says this screen sharing?
Yeah, maybe you click on that again.
So hit stop share.
Yep, hit stop share. Did that
There we
work?
go.
There we go. We should be okay.
Okay.
now.
There we go.
Christie, how do I advance it?
You'll have to tell me and I'll advance it for
Okay,
you.
that's fine. Thank you very much. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Kit Rodkey. I also want to thank Don Poorman for alerting me to this wonderful group. I've been listening to all of the good conversations. My presentation today is a little bit different compared to the services that you're providing to our veterans. I hope you'll find this very interesting. And I hope that there'll be some follow-up with me. You'll see a final slide with contact information. So this is the introduction to the National War Museum Project. This project kicked off in 2020. We're a very small grassroots group at this point, where you might say we're in the startup phase. Christy, could you start? Go to the next slide, please. We started in 2020. We're all volunteers. We all have day jobs. I heard one gentleman say he works for the federal government, so do I. The Loudoun County Veterans Engagement Board members, meaning you and your constituents, represent a target audience for the National War Museum. And basically what this is today, my background is in marketing. This is in effect a big focus group for the National War Museum Project. So we are a project in the very early stages. We have a long ways to go. We're hoping by 2026 that we'll have some sort of event, hopefully not virtual, that will be a milestone in the development of the National War Museum. My own background, I'm a resident of Sterling. I'm very close to where Jim is at his location. As further background, I was a fundraiser here in Loudoun County for the National World War II Memorial and led a citizens group to raise funds for the memorial. I was also very active in reestablishing the National Memorial Day Parade. I hope you've seen it. It's down on Constitution Avenue every Memorial Day. So, Christy, could you go next stage of slide, please? Why do we want to have a National War Museum? I'm sure you've all heard a lot lately about monuments and museums. In fact, there's no one military museum that we'll use the term one-stop shopping format, all-encompassing timeline. And by that, I mean a museum that's going to encompass all the service branches of the U.S. military, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, etc. Not just one. All wars and conflicts. Many museums in this country cover World War II and the Civil War. And we would like to have a museum that would be representative of our outstanding generals, such as General Eisenhower and many others. We feel strongly that this National War Museum concept will be viable to be located in DC or the immediate area, i.e. Arlington County, the immediate counties adjacent to the National Mall. The reason for that is we want to maximize, our goal is to maximize accessibility to the international community that's coming to DC, tourists, and to, what shall we say, mainstream Americans that are coming to DC, many with families who cannot make it to the outlying museums. We're going to see more about this a little bit later, who can't make it to those outlying museums, no matter how great they are. Most national museums are located in the nation's capital. There's many examples. I've just listed 3 here. In Ottawa, you've got the Canadian War Museum. England has, London's got the Imperial War Museum, the main branch. And in Australia, you have the Australian War Museum. Another reason for, or rationale for this museum is that we don't want to compete with the other museums, such as the Marine Corps, such as the one that's opening up at Fort Belvoir, and the other museums in the DC area. We want to partner with them. We want to be a hub or a referral to those museums. And there's other reasons for this, but those are the highlights. Next slide, please, Christy. So there are about 160 military history-related museums in the United States. I'm a member of the American Alliance of Museums. That is the #1 trade organization, you might say, of the museum world. It's also a very global organization. So some of the stats and statements I'm making to you now are based on my research data available from the National Alliance of Museums. Like everybody else, we've been hearing it so far in our meeting tonight. The pandemic has really affected tremendously museums and cultural institutions. So what we see here, and I hope you forgive me because I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to say this pretty quickly. The leading military museums are in New Orleans. That's the World War II Museum. The Air Force's main museum is out in Dayton. World War I Museum is in Kansas City. The National Veterans Memorial Museum opened in Columbus a couple years ago. I was there. It's a fabulous museum. And of course, we have Smithsonian museums in DC. All of those Smithsonian museums, or almost all of them, even the ones that aren't dedicated to military, have some sort of military gallery. Some of the ones that we're most familiar with here would be Air and Space, downtown, and out here near Dulles. As I said, pandemic has had a huge impact on cultural institutions, museums. The American Alliance of Museums, all of their conferences have shut down. It's affected attendance. It's been a terrible, terrible impact on them. They are all struggling, including the Smithsonian. Also, we're all aware of what I'm calling the anti-monuments movement. Has had a kind of a forced rethinking what monuments are all about, but that's now coming over into the museum world. The definition of museums is changing, and 10 years from now, it's going to be very different from what we think of a museum as now. I would like to see the museum do a better job of being more multicultural and multi-generational. So these are some of the new sensitivities that are around monuments, memorials. And when you talk about doing something in the DC area, you get into a whole landscape of other politics, other concerns by stakeholder groups. There's even a well-known book out there in the media and in the museum world called Monuments Wars. Next slide, please, Christy. So in DC, upcoming, we have a World War I memorial that's going to be in Pershing Park. The monument to General Eisenhower just opened. I was able to see a virtual dedication ceremony, very interesting. That's near Department of Education. I've seen the memorial, it's terrific. The National Museum of the U.S. Army was delayed for almost a year by the pandemic. They are now going to have an opening in about a month and then open to the public. Also coming is the National Desert Storm and Desert Shield Memorial. That's planned on the mall. Speaking of the variety of museums that are out there, I said for various conflicts, for various generals, for various parts of the military. Now there's actually going to be a museum for the Medal of Honor. There's Medal of Honor Museum. It's going to be in Arlington, but they're now going through the process of having a memorial in DC. We'll see if that happens. This National War Museum project is based, one of my volunteers is a student, a grad student. She did a research study this year on potential locations in DC. As in the real estate world, it's location, location, a location. In effect, the National Mall has been closed by Congress. There's always an exception, but due to the number of memorials down there in the mall, no new memorials other than ones you see here, I've mentioned, are supposed to be developed. That doesn't affect museums, however. There are numerous and myriad stakeholders involved in creating a museum in DC or the immediate area. One group would be, I'll say, general category. Everybody on this call tonight and the organizations that I've seen in your listing are veterans, retired or active duty, their families, and I'll say veterans-related organizations like American Legion, VFW. There are many, many others. I'm listed these here to give you a feeling for those that are involved in and the challenges of doing a museum like this. There's something called the National Mall Coalition. They opposed vehemently the National World War II Memorial. They didn't like the location. They didn't like the size. That forced a lot of changes to the memorial. There was actually going to be a museum in it that got dropped out to make that memorial more amenable to the complex planning and approval process that memorials go through. As I've mentioned, the Smithsonian and other museums have some sort of representation, almost in all of them, of wars. Then it depends upon who the mission of that particular museum is for as to their coverage. Another group, Save the Tidal Basin Group. This is a group that is concerned with upgrading the area around the Jefferson Memorial. I don't know if you've been down there lately, maybe around cherry blossom time. That was before the pandemic hit. You've seen the poor conditions down there. American Express has kicked in many millions of dollars to fund this. They're a nonprofit. So these are just a handful of stakeholders that are involved. On my master list, I've got about 30 different organizations, including the media, that are involved in developing, establishing, funding, developing museums. Next slide, please, Christy. What are the primary goals of the National War Museum project? So these are some goals. There's others that could be listed here. But these four are to present the military of the history of the U.S., both domestically and internationally. One of the things, and you'll see the tagline down below there, global, inclusive, comprehensive, and accessible. One of the things that I would like to see more of in museums and military museums in particular is more awareness of what other countries have contributed to our military. It's not to say that they don't. You can go into most military museums and you'll see something about our allies in Europe, for example, but I believe there's an opportunity to expand that in a larger way. So to embrace new concepts in military appreciation for today's and future generations. In my day-to-day work, I have to work with a lot of younger staff members, and we all know the profound impact of social media has had with younger generations. And we have to look ahead to where we're going to be 10 years from now and beyond. And so that needs to be rethought down to the types of exhibits that are in museums and how do we explain history. I've seen some examples around the globe of how this is being done, I haven't been to the new Army Museum. It'll be interesting to see. It's not just about artifacts, although those are important. We know from some research that with younger generations, artifacts are important, but there's other ways of presenting information that I don't think are being done as well as they can be. So that's the same thing with the third item there. And then, as I said, I think there's a lot of overlooked voices and stories that need to be better told or amplified in some way. We know that Native Americans, for example, Japanese Americans, for example, Blacks, African Americans, these are all stories that need to be, I think, presented to a greater extent than to the traditional museums that we've seen. Next slide, please, Christy. So again, the American Alliance for Museums has a lot of research, and I've done a lot of personal research for this effort. What are some of the basic, maybe it's overlooked reasons why people visit museums in the first place? One, convenience and ease of access. That comes across in all of the reports that you see out there. Why do people visit museums? It's access, getting down to whether there is a metro stop or not nearby, having a personal connection to the museum and its content, day out, something to do. So a lot of people who come to the mall are down there and they have one or two museums that they're going to see, particularly if they have families and international people. I've traveled a lot overseas, visited a lot of museums, including in Russia, and they expect to have to see a museum that's going to be kind of a chronology of our conflicts and in one place. They may go out to some of the other museums depending upon the interests if they have the time. So again, the one-stop-shopping concept. Who are the primary audiences? Again, mainstream Americans, veterans, history buffs, scholars, researchers, and media. One of my affiliations is I'm a member of the Friends of the World War II Memorial. So I've been to their events and I've met writers, et cetera, in this group. In my anecdotal, unscientific, limited research has indicated that, to me, there is a need for this particular museum. Obviously, educators at all levels. The National World War II Museum every year sponsors trips to Memorial, sponsors trips to it. That's what the Friends of the World War II Memorial do. International, there's a huge community in DC, I think is overlooked to some extent, of all the embassies, all of the international organizations that I think would be interested in this, and then tourists. So whether they're from China or they're from France or Argentina, they come in their countries. Usually there's a national war museum. And, there'll be other museums too around military themes, but a national war museum is what they would expect to see. And then of course there's community residents in DC and the surrounding counties that need to be, we want to create awareness and get support from in this effort. Next slide, please, Christy. At the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, there is an exhibit down there that is still there. It's permanent gallery. It's called The Price of Freedom, Americans at War. And of all the museums I've seen, not just in DC area, but outside, it really is a microcosm of what our concept is for this museum. Unfortunately, it's just a small gallery. It's in one of the back corners of that museum. It's dated by far. So, but it is an example. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but it is an example of what we're thinking. So there's the route of the Smithsonian that possibly we could work with to establish a museum. Some of the other ways or avenues include as a component to the federal government agency. I don't think a lot of people knew, and I certainly didn't before I started doing this research. There's 6 or 7 museums that are part of the headquarters offices of federal agencies, I should say federal civilian government agencies. Drug Enforcement Administration, state's got a proposed museum coming. National Security Administration's got a Cryptologic Museum, Patent and Trademark Office, and Department of Interior. They all have very small museums. So possibly this effort could leverage, partner with a federal government agency. There's a lot involved with that, but that's one possible route. Then there's DOD. DOD is opening its Army Museum in Belvoir. Each of the major service branches, Army, Air Force, and Navy, have museums around the country. Navy is just announced they're upgrading their Navy Yard Museum, or I think $400 million for that one. But there is a possibility that they would be, we hope, to go through the effort that will be required for this, a possibility of a National War Museum. We'll have to see. Then there's the for-profit private route. Here in DC, the Bible Museum is an example of that. The News Museum, which closed recently or with the last year, were for-profit museums. A lot of times, not only the DC versions, there's often a major benefactor, a wealthy donator that includes the museum out in Columbus. The Spy Museum, there's usually someone who kicks in a lot of money, and that leads to other donations, and that gets the ball rolling as far as that's concerned. There is a nonprofit route that it could be followed, and a good example of that's the National Law Enforcement Museum. The U.S. Holocaust Museum is an example of that. And then there's hybrids. The International Spy Museum that relocated over towards L'Enfant Plaza, they were in a different location for many years. They're going from a for-profit to a nonprofit route. So if you look at the research out there, these are the main ways that museums get established. And there's variations on theme. Each route has a lot of different subsets, timelines, and all that kind of good stuff. But this gives you an idea of what it takes to establish a museum. Next slide, please, Christy. So no cookbook approach. Every museum and every memorial, for that matter, is different, takes a different approach. There is some general steps that you can glean from all of this, which is creating awareness, adding resources, building support and credibility. That's where we are right now. Probably will continue to be for at least another year, depending upon what avenues open up to us, what interest we get from the stakeholders. And stakeholders could be individuals as well as groups. So we are in the mold in the process of forming a pre-founders group, which then evolves to a founders group. That is how many of those museums that in the past that I just described get established. Then there is establish a nonprofit foundation for tax purposes, for collecting contributions, et cetera. That also gives the credibility that is essential to get off the ground and get money behind your effort. At some point, Congress gets involved one way or another, different paths, different routes. The Dwight D. Eisenhower Memorial took 21 years to establish. I don't think there's been any museum that's ever been established, minimum of 15 years. Most of them are longer than that, from initial concept through all of the steps that go into opening the doors. And of course, once a museum's open, you have a lot of other things for maintaining an endowment, et cetera, et cetera. So really getting seed gifts from top donors. You identify top donors who are interested in a concept for whatever reason. I have a number in mind for this effort. And so long as you get some startup funds, then at least you have a hope of getting established. I have to say that one of the most popular memorials in DC, well-deserved so, is the Vietnam Memorial. And Jan Struggs and many others wanted to open a education center next to it. They worked hard over about a 10-year period. It did not come to fruition. They'd never met the goals for the amount of money that they needed for it. All of this to open up, to establish a memorial and a museum takes big bucks. We're going to see in a moment some costs. So capital fundraising campaign to break ground and ultimately dedicate the museum is essential. Next slide, please, Christy. So once we get the donors, wealthy benefactor, appropriated funds for Smithsonian's, that's the starting point. Again, variations on a theme. I thought you might be interested in how the initial costs for establishing a selection of museums. So the Holocaust, 168 million, US Army, 430 million, Marine Corps, 90 million, Bible Museum, 500 million. Now, if you see these buildings in the locations, you have to keep that in mind. That's affecting some of these costs. What are some of the costs? Real estate, location, design and construction, lots of consultant fees, fabrication of exhibits. And then after that, it must account for accreditation, operational endowment. That is it. That's in a nutshell. There's a lot of other factors and variables that are involved with this. How about size? So there was a correlation between those costs and size. Holocaust, 260,000 square feet. Now this is the immediate building. It's not the surrounding area. 260,000 square feet. Bible Museum, 430,000 square feet. Spy Museum, 140,000 square feet, etc. So there's quite a lot of variation in museums. I'm envisioning at least a mid-sized museum to truly cover all of the conflicts, wars, etc., the goals that I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please, Christy. Other challenges. So we've touched upon some of the challenges. Service branches are establishing and upgrading their own museums. Army's got theirs at Fort Belvoir. Navy is upgrading their museum at Navy Yard. I think that's going to become their flagship museum. The three service branches each have museums all around the country. Some of them have 15, 17 different museums that are within Army, Navy, and Air Force. The biggest one, the Air Force, being in Dayton, for example. So, you know, this concept with those museums out there, how will this concept fly, this National War Museum? We want to collaborate with the other memorials and museums. That's how we have to position this not as a competitor, but as a link or a connector to those other museums. Setting up an organization like this, as you well know, requires a lot of time and effort, gaining commitments. I have a full-time job. When I was involved with the National World War II Memorial and the effort to put the parade on Constitution Avenue, I was fortunate to be able to take time off and also plan it into my work to be involved with that, because it is extremely time consuming. The key thing is to get other resources, others involved in coalition type formats, so that you can pitch in. It's one thing to do a memorial and a parade. It's quite another to do a museum, however. So it's a multifaceted approach, long-term, step-by-step, resource-intensive enterprise. A lot of people think that they get legislation through friendly congressmen, even when it's bipartisan, that they're well on their way. It's not. There's been a lot of museums, monuments out there that have stalled because they couldn't meet the necessary funding targets to proceed. Next slide, please, Christy. Here's some proposed National War Museum mission statements. These are just proposed. I'm just putting them out there. All the memorials, some of the museums and memorials that I mentioned earlier, go to their websites. They all have excellent websites, and they'll have their mission statement on there. Here's a couple. One is to cover all the nation's wars and military arms, show how impacts were contributed, increase the international perspective, and to serve as a hub to other museums. I was watching a show on TV the other night. It was a British author being interviewed by an American historian, and the British author, it was about Winston Churchill. And the comment was made by the British author, don't forget, 4 out of 5 Germans were killed on the Eastern Front by the Russians. And, you know, of course, we had D-Day and all of that, but there are lots of international facets that are being overlooked. The Marshall Plan, there's a lot of other stuff that I don't think are, or we don't think are being covered in the way that it should. And so that's kind of embedded in these. So the second one is to honor sacrifices, educate American and international visitors about our nation's wars and military branches, and embrace individual stories. So those are 2. It would be easy probably to come up with 10 test mission statements, but this gets the ball rolling. Next slide, please, Christine. Museums around common subjects, and we'll be wrapping up here shortly. So here
I appreciate that. You can move forward as best as you can.
Okay,
so there's 3 time crunches.
Okay, Medal of Honor, Revolutionary War, African-American history. These are all museums, multiple topics that have museums around them. Next slide, please, Christy. Short-term strategy for our project, continue to work around COVID-19. It's affecting everything what we do, including this project in a big, big way. Conduct outreach with a wide range of influencers, such as yourselves and the people and the organizations represented here, and thereby laying a ground for partners and partnerships and organizations. Next slide, please, Christy. This is the final slide. So in summary, we are looking for anybody interested in joining us as a volunteer at this point. One of the key things is, we've heard it earlier in this discussion, website is crucial. We do have a website, nationalwarmuseum.org. I'd be interested in any feedback here and afterwards. If you think of organizations, people who may be interested in this in however way,
Thank you, Rose. Are you back, Kit?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, you froze for a second. Any questions?
Just keep going. No, just keep going forward. I'm having a really serious problem with audio connection out here. So,
okay, no worries.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to really handle things.
Do we have any questions for Kit?
I don't have a question. I do have a comment. And that is, I hope that the museum would have a balanced presentation and include what I'll euphemistically call lessons learned.
Yes.
Such as the My Lai massacre.
Yes.
I think that's important for you all to have credibility.
That's exactly the kind of area that we would want to include this in here. Yes. I also see deficits with what Afghanistan and Iraq, Iran. So that is an excellent example, sir.
Awesome. We had a couple of comments in the chat, Kit, that just said, thanks for your presentation and very informative. And thank you. So
thanks.
Awesome. Well, with that, I will switch back over. I think our next presenter is Alfredo Torres with Virginia Department of Veteran Services. And Alfredo, if you want to share your screen, you can, or if you want me to pull up your slides, I have them as well.
No, I would prefer that you do it, please.
Okay.
I just think it's easier that way.
No worries. Let me pull yours up.
And while you're getting that ready, I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody for allowing me to do this presentation for you. I used to be the Northern Virginia Region Transition Assistance Program Manager, and I have since moved to Central Virginia. And Miss Katie Spinazzola, who quite a few of you might be familiar with, has taken over my my space up there. She is currently out right now, so that's why I am filling in for her. Next slide, please. What I plan on giving you today is a overview of the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, and I know I have a couple of my colleagues who are attending this, and just to give you a background of it, let you know what we are and how we can assist. Virginia Department of Veteran Services, VDVS, is a state agency. A lot of people might not be aware, but you get two sets of benefits. One is the federal benefits that we are all familiar with, GI Bill, guaranteed home loan, things like that. The other is state, and your benefits vary from state to state. Well, in Virginia, the state agency is called the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, and we have a commissioner who is overall in charge of it. We are a partner with, but not part of, the Federal Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA, as it's known. So one of the challenges that we get is whenever we say we're here to help, the first thing is everybody thinks we're the VA and kind of starts coming at us. It's like, no, we're not that VA. We innovate and always challenging with new and expanded programs to meet the needs of veterans of all periods of service. Regardless of what period you served in, and we still have people going back as far as World War II here, we are always out to adjust whatever we need to help those people who have served our military who decide to reside in Virginia. A leader among state-level veteran agencies, VDVS programs have been and are being copied by other states. Believe it or not, we are one of the top 3 states for veterans who have retired and veterans who have transitioned out, right along with Texas and Washington State. Now, we can pull some people from Washington State, but anybody who knows a Texan knows that they're going back to Texas. There's nothing you can do to stop them. So if we ever end up coming second behind Texas, we're always, we're happy with that. We have over 800 dedicated employees strong, located throughout the entire Commonwealth, and an agency with a diverse portfolio, but one unifying mission, and that is serving those who have served. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about Virginia veterans by the numbers. We're the 8th largest veteran population with 725,000 plus. 4th largest as percentage of a population. 1 in 11 Virginians is a veteran. Everybody here knows or are related to a veteran. 14% are women, almost 140,000. It's the highest per capita among all the states. 4th largest military retiree population at 156,000 plus. 4th highest percentage of veterans in the labor force. 4th highest in veteran working age population. So not only are we getting transitioning service members and veterans and retirees who are getting out, but they're getting out while they're still young enough to work. And they are a huge part of the workforce of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Next slide, please. Now, here is the DVS organization, and I'm going to try to go through this really, really fast because I know that you guys have been on for a while. Okay, we break down into 6 major lines, and the lines will start with, after we have, of course, the commissioner and his leadership team. Start with veteran benefits. There are 34 benefits offices located throughout the Commonwealth. These are some of our most active state employees. They're there to help the veteran with their VA claims, along with many of the other benefits that they get, not only from the federal government, but from the state. You can locate one nearby. I believe we just opened up an office right outside of Fort Belvoir, where there's a couple. There's a few up in God, it's been so long since I've been up there. Springfield, um, and there's a couple of other offices that are located throughout the Northern Virginia area as we try to make.
There is
as-
one in Loudoun, Alfredo.
Yeah, there's one in Loudoun. Okay, thank you. And we try to make it as convenient as possible for the veterans to get to them. The Virginia Education Transition and Employment Line, which is where I work, and you see it'll break down into further sections. Virginia Values Veterans, the V3 program. I'm sure a lot of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the V3 program, a state certification that certifies a company, a nonprofit organization, or a federal or state government agency as veteran friendly. The VTAP program, where I work, which is a Virginia Transition Assistance Program. Our job is to help veterans, transitioning service members, and military spouses with education, employment, or entrepreneurial opportunities. The Military Medics and Corpsmen program, the EPMEC program, the only one in the United States. This is a program that was developed to take military medics and corpsmen and take them off the battlefield and put them in hospitals working, utilizing the real world experience that they had, that they experienced in the battlefield. That's how it started. I'm sorry? Okay. That's how it started. It has since grown to help all medical personnel find employment, including health administration and things like x-ray techs and phlebotomists and all the other specialties that are out there. The GI Bill programs, we have programs that are out there. The SAA, the state, SAA, excuse me, I always confuse them, the state approving agency. And what they do is they are the governing agency for the GI Bill. Their jobs are strictly to enforce compliance with educational institutions or anybody who wants to use the GI Bill, is to make sure that people don't take advantage, excuse me, of all that money that's out there. The Virginia Military Survivors and Department, excuse me, Independent Education Program, VMISDEP, is a program set up if you are 90% disabled or greater, your spouse or your children can get 48 months at a Virginia higher education learning system, college or university, for free. If you're 90% or greater and it's combat related, your spouse or your children not only get the schooling for free, but they also get a stipend. And then the last one is the Higher Vets Now Fellowship Program. I'm the candidate coordinator for that. And that is the only DOD approved skill bridge program that is run by a state in the United States. And we do that in a conjunction and with partnership with the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. And we feature currently 31 V3 approved companies. We have the Virginia Veteran and Family Support Line, which we have a couple members who are attending this meeting right now. 26 operating locations. They help you with housing and homelessness. They help you with, they will help justice-involved veterans, and they help with family caregiver programs. So these are three areas where the state reaches out to help the veterans who are having difficulty, whether it's they're living in their car, whether they just got released and they're on one of what we call our second chance citizens, or they're having problems meeting bills, needing counseling for the family. we have the Veterans Care Centers, and this is we have 2 right now, which is the Virginia Veterans Care Center and Sitter and Barefoot Veterans Care Center. That's in Roanoke and in Richmond, respectively. And we've got 2 that are opening up, the Jones and Cabacoy Veterans Center down in Virginia Beach, and the Puller Veterans Center, which is going to be up in Fauquier County. Okay. It'll be up there.
Fauquier.
I'm from New York. I'm sorry. I don't want to. I don't want to affect how I butcher that word too much. This is a place for for the long-term care of our veterans. Those of us who are getting ready, who are getting a little long in the tooth, and we want to make sure that we're going to put them somewhere where they're going to be taken care of, and they'll be surrounded by like-minded people. They'll be surrounded by other veterans. The Virginia cemeteries, we have 3 currently in Amelia, in Suffolk, and in Dublin. We're currently in the middle of expanding the Suffolk one, and we're getting ready to have a new cemetery in Amherst County to make it nice and simple. If you're a state veteran and you pass away, we pretty much cover everything with the exception of the coffin. You can pre-register, which is nice. I hate bringing it up, but by the same token, we all know that when a loved one passes away, that's a very traumatic time. By pre-registering, it's a good way to have a lot of that really taken care of, to ease that period. And then, of course, the Virginia War Memorial, which is down here in Richmond. We just finished the expansion project, and it looks beautiful. If you get a chance, please come on down here. Next slide, please. This is just a location of where all of our major offices are. You can see a bunch of them are in Northern Virginia. Chrissy, if when we're done, you can hand out the PowerPoint presentation, and they'll be able to take a look at those offices that are close to them or close to their loved ones. Next slide, please. Here's a list of what our benefits service take care of. As you can see, and again, I'm really just going to go quick for time. The biggest one is the service-connected disability compensation claim. We are the model for state agencies on how to help and process these claims. We do it electronically, which completes the process a lot quicker. And you can just see some of the other ones: survivor benefits claim, application for educational benefits, outreach into local communities, assistance to other VSOs that are out there. There's a whole gamut. Again, when you get the PowerPoints, you can look deeper into that list. Next slide, please. Virginia Veterans and Family Support. This is one of our biggest units that are out there. They fill critical gaps in care conditioning, as you can see, in partnership with veteran and family members. VVFS resource specialists perform needs assessment and develop coordinated resource plans. These are the people to go to if you know of a veteran in crisis. They are there to respond. They take action quickly. You can see some of the other things: connect veterans and families to behavioral, rehabilitative, and support services. They deliver focused services such as peer support, family workshops and retreats, and caregiver support. They're not only looking out for the veteran, but they're looking out for the caregiver. As we know now, with a lot of our older vets or our disabled vets, that caregiver needs support. Ensure that the homelessness amongst veterans is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. You can see Virginia was the first state in the nation to functionally end veteran homelessness. Okay, and I can tell you, as a person who's been contacted by homeless people, and I've reached out to my partners over in VVFS, it is addressed quickly, regardless of the time. As soon as you can get somebody on the phone, by email, they are working on it. So that's something to really be aware of, especially now as it starts to get colder. We want to get our homeless veterans off of the street. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the service justice involved veterans. The VVFS provides crisis intervention training for law enforcement agencies, works with courts on veteran dockets, and partners with the VA DOC prisons and jails on reentry programs. They go out to these jails and prisons and they meet with the veterans to help them get ready to come back into society and be productive after they've paid their debts. Next slide, please. The War Memorial honors patriotic Virginians who've rendered faithful services and sacrifice in the cause of freedom and liberty for the Commonwealth and in the nation in the time of war. The Shrine of Memory, which is absolutely beautiful and very awe-inspiring, has the name of the nearly 12,000 Virginians who've been killed in action from World War II to the present. I've been there when veterans have come, Virginians have come and seen the names of their fellow Virginians who they served with, you know, who have passed away. And it's very, very emotional. The Education Center, with Smithsonian quality exhibits and award-winning educational programs. We get almost 70,000 visitors a year, and 28,000 square foot addition, which was under construction. It's been completed and expands the Shrine of Memories, has new education and exhibit spaces, and also helped with parking, which was a big deal back then, before all this was done. Next slide, please. The Veteran Care Center, again, provides skilled nursing, Alzheimer's / memory, and short-term rehabilitative care to veterans. You can see currently up in over in Roanoke, that center's got 240 beds, 200 at the one in Richmond. And then the one up in Fauquier County, the Puller Veteran Center, is going to have 128 beds, and that's currently under construction. Next slide, please. Veteran cemeteries, again, provide the final resting place for our veterans and their families. For, I believe it's a $300 fee. Your spouse can be buried alongside you. Everything, again, is taken care of. They're operated and maintained cemeteries as national shrines. They are absolutely beautiful if you've gone to one. Very respectful, very solemn, very well maintenance and well taken care of. It's something that I would recommend for any veteran who's here. Next slide, please. Education, transition, and employment. First of all, this is what breaks down into those 6 categories that I told you about earlier. We have the V3 program, which helps to train employment agencies, federal agencies, government agencies, and nonprofits in how to recruit, hire, and retain veterans. Over 65,000 veterans have been hired or retained since the program started in 2012. It's a quick training program. And any company that wants to do it, we're more than happy to connect with them. The VTAP program, I already told you about what we do. We do career coaching. All 3 of us who are part of the VTAP program are certified national and global career coaches. We also can connect them to vetted resource providers. I told you about the Military Medics and Corpsmen program, concentrating on those veterans and transitioning service members who are medically trained, and may I add, military spouses. Very important part, because as we know, a lot of military transition in here, and their spouses are medical professionals. And we help them to be able to We help them with reciprocity and getting employment a lot quicker. And then I told you about the state approving agency, which helps oversee the education and training programs for the GI Bill, and also VMISDEP falls under them. Next slide, please. I've already told you about the V3 program. You can see here at the time that this was made, over 1,300 certified companies in the Commonwealth of Virginia. 840 are currently enrolled, going through the process, and over 66,000 veterans have been hired or retained due to the training that's provided. Next slide. VTAP, if you take a look at some of these numbers, okay, our outreach in the 4 years since I've been here, since I started, has gone from 22,000 to 109,000 veterans, spouses, and transitioning service members that we've been able to reach. Our VTAP events, events held which deal with either employment or DoD skill bridge or networking or resource partnership. We had 23 in 2017. This year we've had 221. Many of them switched over to virtual. I actually held 2 today before this one. Our transition service partnerships, you can see we had none. As of last year, we had 200. We're still in the process, obviously, of this year, so that total's not there, but we're on pace to beat the 200. Our installation visits, as you can see, also went up from 57 to last year, 227. And of course, this year, because of COVID and the lockdown on bases, we haven't been able to go on base, but that hasn't stopped us from doing our presentations on base, from holding virtual office hours on base, and connecting through the USO Pathfinder program and through the various TAP offices, connecting with transitioning service members who are still looking for that assistance with their post-military career. And you can see we didn't even keep track of our inquiries and clients served in 2017 because it was minuscule. This year, last year, 2,433 clients were served by 3 of us. There were 3 of us who did that, who worked with them. So you can see that we are out there working hard and connecting with as many as we can. Next slide, please. I already told you about the MMAC program. Next slide, please. Hire Vets Now. This is a DoD Skill Bridge approved program. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The Hire Vets Now program itself breaks down into 2 things: networking and the fellowship program. The networking side is a joint initiative between us, the Department of Veteran Services, and the Virginia Chamber Foundation. And they bring together transitioning service members, veterans and military spouses, and business representatives for professional development and career networking. This is great for those who are looking to transition. And we encourage them to start the networking process. As most of you know, especially if you were a veteran transitioning out, the key thing to help you advance was networking. And we do not know how to network coming out of the military. So this is one of the things that it helps. When we were on base, we held monthly networking events. We would switch to the installations, and now we're doing them virtually. So we're still out there doing them. Next slide. VMISDEP, I've already talked about them. Next slide. And that's it. So I took this presentation. I was able to strike it down. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them now if we have time, or if not, to reach out to me. Christy, please make sure everybody gets a copy of of the presentation so that they could have more time to look at it in depth. And again, reach out to us at any point. We're still out there working for the veterans, even in this COVID-19 environment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Alfredo. I appreciate it. I think we
Christie, is
lost.
Tom Grant on this call?
Well, he was, but I'm not seeing him right now. So he may have had to drop off, or he may have dropped off. Do we have any questions for Alfredo before we wrap up?
One more question for the briefer. Have you had the opportunity to meet with Tom Grant and present this information?
I haven't. I am not sure if my counterpart has. My counterpart is Katie Spinazzola. As I said, she's out right now due to a family situation. So I'm filling in for her to do this presentation. However, if Christy can get that information to me, I will reach out to her to see if she has. And if she hasn't, I'll be more than happy to connect her to him.
No, I'm not. It's not a her. It's Tom Grant.
No, her is Christy. I mean,
No.
not Christy, is Katie Spinazzola.
Katie, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're unmuted.
And yeah, Peter, I'm pretty sure Tom is very well aware of the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, all the different initiatives that they run. And I know he's closely connected to Mike King over at DBS and more. So I am sure he is connected, but yes, we'll make sure that he is squared away.
Hey, Christy, this is Ken. We've got Jim on the phone here. He's having real problems with his screen, so he can hear through my phone and talk as well to the group.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and, I know that we're a little bit over time. So if there's any other updates, announcements that people want to share, now's the time to do it, or you can put it in the chat as well. And then we'll get ready to close things out.
It's very quiet, so I guess we can come to the end of the meeting. I really appreciate both of the guest speakers. Very informative. I learned quite a bit from both of them. And again, I appreciate all the members that helped us out tonight with the election, and we look forward to the years coming as it comes. We finish this one out and head for 2021. Thanks again for all you've done. Okay, Christy?
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate it. And the next meeting will be December 15th from 7 to 8:30 again on Zoom. So I'll be sending the registration link out, and I'll be sending a lot over to Michael as he transitioned to as our secretary. So he'll be starting to send out information to you guys soon on how to register for that meeting. And then hopefully in February, depending on how things go, we might have a room reserved up at the Loudoun Government Center to maybe meet again in person. So more to come, but we'll see you virtually in December.
Good work. Thank you. Signing off.
Awesome.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Christy.
Thank you.
Thank you.